I'm Mike Gruwell with One Drummer Drumming.
Hey, I'm Chris with Picks and Sticks Music Studio. If you're new to the channel, we're an all things music channel. We like to support our local artists and bands. And tonight we have Mike in the house, and we're excited about that. And this is episode number 45 of the local artists and band series. And if you're new to this channel, don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell for notifications if you want to see more interviews like this. And don't forget to smash that like button. Not only does it help the channel, it helps the artists that we are interviewing and trying to promote, because more likes this video gets, more views this video gets, which gives them more recognition. So I'm excited to have Mike here.
Thanks, Chris.
So thank you for coming.
Yeah, thanks for having me. We've watched several of your videos, and of course my other band, Red Hot Empty, was on here once with you. So I love what you do.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks again. I hope you didn't have to come too far.
No, yeah.
Scott's in the house. Scott is our moderator. I'm pointing at the screen, but ask Mike your questions here in the live chat, and we'll get those answered. And we'll say that a couple times. And this also will be time stamped. We always try to time stamp these to make it a little easier for you guys to navigate the interview, because sometimes these can get long. But yeah, so my first question, I always do icebreaker questions, and if you could have dinner with 5 people, who would it be?
So I guess musician-wise, other than like old family
anybody.
members that are no longer around, I would love to see some old grandparents and stuff like that. But Jimi Hendrix would be probably, I think, would be an interesting person. I always loved... one of my main first influences was definitely Hendrix and the double album of Axis Boulder's Love with Are You Experienced? I had the tape of that. And it was both out, one album on each side, and I'd listen to that just, one side through on a Walkman just over and over again. So, but in Seattle, they had that, the EXP museum, or his museum for a while. It's kind of changed a little bit, but I always thought it'd be interesting to sit down with him. If I ever had the chance, and then Jason Bonham would have been an interesting person to have dinner with.
Yeah,
that's for sure. He seemed very interesting living out in the. He had this big farm and stuff like that, and just obviously everything with drums, but just another interesting person. I always thought Prince would be, but then I read a book by Sinead O'Connor, and I'm not sure Prince would be all that. He'd be kind of crazy. But Sinead O'Connor would have been an interesting person to have dinner with.
Yes.
And let's see, other musician wise, I guess a band, like, I don't know if I can do it to 5 person, but like, I'd love to sit down and have dinner with like either Soundgarden when Chris Cornell was still alive. Of course, Matt Cameron's awesome. And then, Living Color, I still love them, so having dinner with them would have been awesome, or could be awesome. That's still a possibility.
Living Color was my first ever concert I went to. Of
course,
really? My first concert ever going to, I was like in 8th grade. It was a little, but it was a free concert at UF Band Shell.
Oh wow!
And my sister and brother took me. It was freaking awesome.
Yeah,
and they kick butt. I mean, they're so underrated, I think.
They're still around, still playing. They're actually coming to Atlanta. They're playing with Extreme, who's still around.
Oh my God, that would be awesome.
And so yeah, I think that's
do that.
That's later in, like, I don't know. I've been looking at tickets. I think I'm going to end up going to that. But yeah,
that would be awesome.
Because Will Calhoun,
new album's awesome.
Oh really? I've never.
Yeah, oh my God.
Got into it. Like, I didn't know they were still putting out albums.
No, they just put one out this year, and it was it was in probably the top 20 of rock albums this year.
Wow.
It's good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome. But yeah, Will Calhoun has always been like just one of those drummers you look up to. So yeah,
that's good.
That'd be any of those people I'd have dinner, just hang out, just hang with would be awesome.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Cool. How'd you get started playing drums?
I think not too different from a lot of people in that, or at least where I was, I grew up in Seattle area, and music was a huge part of the schools back then. I mean, we're talking, 80s. And so I started off with trumpet, I did that in like, I think fifth or sixth and starting seventh grade. So junior high school. And then halfway through junior high school, I really loved music and I was getting into the jazz band, but I didn't see trumpet as having a future, but I saw drums as like something that might have a future, that I could do. Joke's kind of on me. There was a trumpet player in my jazz band at that time, Jim Sisko, who made a whole career out of being a trumpet player. But anyway, midway through seventh grade, I switched to drums. It just, I don't know, something sat with me, just looked cool, and a good way to get out energy and all that good stuff. So yeah, started in seventh grade, jazz bands. And then it wasn't too long after that I got into my first like punk band. So I was in a punk band in like 87. I think I started playing drums in like 84. And like a year later, we were in a recording studio, laying down our first album or whatever. And that's weird because I was still in high school when I put down my first album with this band called DFL. So, but yeah, that's how I got started. It was just in school, and it just became an obsession. I mean, from like 84 till 2000, 1999, I was, that was my main thing for a long time. So
right, and you did say Seattle, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So that's Seattle had a pretty great punk scene, right? And I mean, I hear all these stories, from Duff McKagan and stuff about all the punk days back in the 70s and mid 80s or whatever.
Yeah. I would say that I was pretty clueless of what was going. Like when you're in it, you're not really, you don't aware like the punk scene, the grunge scene, all that stuff, because you were there. I didn't realize it till later. Like, oh, that's what was going on at that time. I mean, there's a lot of music going on, but I don't think you really, or we didn't realize at the time what was going on, other than it was just, there was a lot of music happening, a lot of places you could play shows,
right,
a lot of bands coming and going and stuff like that. But yeah, like my first album that I recorded with that band DFL, we recorded with Jack Endino, who was the guy that recorded Nirvana, Soundgarden, all that stuff early on. But again, we had no clue. We're just some band in high school that goes and pays money and goes to this recording studio. And then we've, met this guy and I've had a lifelong, relationship with him, helping with other recordings and stuff like that. But yeah, there definitely was a huge music scene. I mean, music was important. Jazz band was important. Like marching band is, I think, in the South or what have you. Jazz band was big in the Northwest, and we would, we played all over with jazz band. We went to the recording studio as a junior high and a high school jazz band. As a school, you went to the recording studio and you laid down jazz albums and stuff. I mean, it was crazy. You didn't realize how good you had it at that time. It was just something you did. So It was a pretty amazing time.
That's cool.
Yeah.
People don't realize, everybody thinks Seattle, they're known for their grunge scene, right? But
yeah.
they didn't, they had a huge punk scene too before the grunge scene. So
it all
transitioned and
yeah.
But that's pretty cool. Is there any chance of any of that old music that you guys did record could get?
Yeah, I have it up on Bandcamp. So on my Bandcamp page, I have a lot of that. Pretty much everything that I was able to find. I mean, about 10 years ago, I dug a lot of that stuff up. And some of it, we found the original tapes, and I've been re-releasing on like Spotify and stuff like that from Black Moses, Stone Dresden. Those were more rock, funk bands. But then the DFL, we actually just found the master tape of that. Our bass player had it. Me and the singer. Anyway, long story short, we found that tape, and we've given it back to Jack Endino, and he's trying to extract it from there. I mean, that thing's
awesome.
from. So that'll get re-released. But yeah, pretty much everything. I mean, there were some other bands that we only did 4-track recordings and, practice studios and stuff like that. But everything that I officially went to a studio that, only went on to like a demo tape or what have you, I've been able to recapture all of that and re-release pretty much all of it. We're just waiting on the DFL one, which is, and a lot of these tapes that we find, or that I did find, you found extra songs that we never put out and stuff like that. And that's been kind of cool recreating and bringing those back. So. Yeah.
So how'd you get here?
It's like after the Olympics. So my parents moved here. My dad worked for Coca-Cola. He got transferred around, but at some point, he transferred back to Atlanta. I stayed in Seattle. And I I was probably 16, 17 years into like trying to make music work or what have you. So this was like mid to late 90s. And I started skydiving. And at the time, my sister was also skydiving too. And she was living in Georgia with my parents or near my parents. And so I came to visit, and it was just kind of a life change. Like all the bands I was in, it's that same thing where like I put all my eggs in one basket as far as like all these original bands, trying to make it happen. I was, working day jobs, all that type of stuff, trying to go to community college at night, just trying to figure out life, how it is. And I made a decision to kind of switch careers per se, or pursuits. And my parents said, you come live with us, and decided to pursue newspaper reporting, and then a dead field. But at the time, I thought that was like, oh, I'm going to pursue newspaper reporting, editing, because I'd been getting into that in college on the few classes I'd taken. And so I moved here. I did play with some bands for a while. I was doing the newspaper reporting thing and skydiving. And it ended up that I ended up making a career out of skydiving, which was like another thing out of left field. But anyway, so I moved here just because I was going to try something different. Had that safety net of my parents being here, place to land and try, a different career. So it was newspaper reporting, skydiving on the side, still playing music. And then eventually, of those three, skydiving took off, and I made a career out of that over the last 30 years, so 25 years.
Cool.
Yeah,
I totally forgot about the skydiving thing, and I should have asked you about that. If you had to give up one of them. So yeah,
my wife doesn't always agree with the way that I characterize it, but we did get to a point where I was working between the Marietta Daily Journal and the Douglas Sentinel. I was going back and forth. And then I was working at a drop zone. So I was a parachute rigger. I was an instructor. And I was, packing parachutes, instructing and stuff like that. And I was still trying out for bands, playing with different bands. And I think it was about end of 99, beginning of 2000. My wife's like, just choose one and just go for it. And at that point, I decided to go for skydiving. So I put everything into there. The drums were still there, but I didn't pursue bands as much, and basically built up this business called Shooting Star. And that is a parachute rigging, skydiving gear sales business. And that's still ongoing. So I ran that. We're still running that, but that basically started in about 1999, 2000, still going on today. And then about 10 years ago, I think I finally got back on the kit and started pursuing music again, because the business had got to the point where I don't have to be there every day.
Right.
And it's still running well and all that good stuff. So I had a little bit of freedom to pop back, and now I'm on my way to trying to make it.
Well, that's funny. I'm trying to come up with a fictitious question, and it was a real question, like it really happened.
Yeah. So, and I use the writing. I use the writing in skydiving, our business. I have this, I put out articles I wrote for skydiving magazines and all that type of stuff. And then I still use it in music too, like on my main website. Mm-hmm. I write blogs and articles somewhat about drumming. It's not I don't love writing about drums. I love playing drums. I don't love writing about drums so much, but so I still use the writing part of it too. But yeah.
Cool. Hey, Scott, let us know how we're sounding in here. Who are some of your biggest influences?
My first big influence I would say would be Alex Van Halen, only because I think the first cassette tape besides the Hendrix tape was 1984. And I've never he's kind of one of those people where I didn't really ever learn any of his parts, but I love listening to him. I think if I did learn how he did Hot for Teach and all that stuff, it would take some of the mystery out of it. And I love it just being that he's, this phenomenal drummer, and I don't exactly quite know how he does everything he does, but he was probably one of my first big influences of wanting to get into drums. And then he for most drummers, like Alex Van Halen usually leads you into John Bonham, sorry. John Bonham. Did I say Jason Bonham earlier? Probably his son. But anyway, John Bonham. So that led me into John Bonham and Led Zeppelin. And then at the time, because I was in jazz bands, I was into Dennis Chambers, who was an awesome fusion player. Of course, Buddy Rich, Jeff Hamilton. He's still around, and he's this awesome like a brush jazz player. And I saw him several times. There's this place in Seattle called Jazz Alley, and all the jazz artists would come through there. And he was one that I saw several times with the Ray Brown Trio. So he was awesome. And then as we got into like current days, Matt Cameron of Soundgarden, Pearl Jam now, Skinyard. I mean, he's a huge influence on like the way I play drums or think about drums. That comes a lot from that. And at the same time, Will Calhoun of Living Colour. I mean, just phenomenal. And all the stuff that he did is like he did a lot of solo records and stuff like that. And he'd travel to all these different countries and learn all this stuff. So I got into a lot of like percussion type stuff. And that's same with like Mickey Hart. He did a bunch of solo stuff, and all the drummers with like Sting and Paul Simon, all that type of like real drum heavy stuff. In the late 80s, early 90s, all that those type of drummers were, pretty amazing.
If you could only play one genre, what would it be?
Anything original, I guess. But like my go-to is definitely funk music. I mean, if I had if I had this whole horn section and this, funk bass player, and I'd say that'd be my go-to. Or I would love to do that type of stuff. I think if I sit down on the set and I'm just messing around, the first thing I'm gonna do is lay down some like funky beat or whatever. That's kind of like, I don't know. That's my go-to, my bread and butter. Although I love all original. I mean, I'm in a punk band now. I play in rock bands, and anything that's original that we've created, I'm all into. But like for drums, to me, like funk is just, nothing like it.
I love hearing the stories of like Dave Grohl. Like he talks about where he stole certain things from, and it's like totally different. Like steal something from jazz or I don't know, like disco or something. And
there was he
it was like Teen Spirit.
Where he stole it from. Was it Parliament or Bee Gees or something like that? Where he stole. But I mean, all that's influence. Of course, everything that you put out there is going to be some sort of that. But him like thinking back and breaking that down, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. So I probably have asked you this before when I had an interview with you before, but craziest thing that's ever happened when you're playing as a band or a solo artist?
Man,
PG though.
There's nothing, nothing too huge. I mean, I think, I remember I did have, it's not a crazy thing per se. I mean, well, let's see. I remember my first punk band, we ended up playing some Catholic school dance or whatever, and some mom came and ripped out the power of the bass amp or whatever. I'm like, you invited us here. Stuff like that. I remember there was my drums went through a house fire one time in Seattle. And little did I know, like, so I took off at that time, I mean, I didn't have any money or what have you. It was just a bunch of us living in a house or what have you, and it melted, but it was still usable. So I took all the wraps off of it. I actually sent the shells to my mom, who was living in Atlanta at the time. She hand painted the outside, sent them back to me. I put all the old hardware on the set. And we played some shows. I think I borrowed some other people's drums, but the first actual show I played with this kit that, because I didn't get to practice with it either. So put everything on, put the heads on, went to a show and started playing. And what I didn't realize is the fire had changed the chemical composition somehow of the cymbals. And as I started playing, within like the first song or two, all the cymbals just started shattering. I mean, they were like nothing. So I mean that was pretty crazy. Like just you didn't realize what had gone on, but
Yeah.
that the fire had done something to the cymbals, and they just all started like breaking into pieces. It was crazy.
I know like heat treating like stainless steel gets stronger, but I don't know what would happen with brass or
Yeah. For whatever reason, they didn't last. So yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Let's talk about your latest album. So Stacy can bring it up on Spotify and stuff, but it's By the Numbers. Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
Album?
By the Numbers. So this was kind of like a concept album. I mean, let's see, like 10 years, I think we talked a little bit about it before we started, but about 10 years ago, I kind of started building out a studio where I would start recording stuff and playing. And 2019 is where I started really finishing out the studio. And then when the pandemic had hit, I got that kind of nailed down. And I had all these songs I'd been working on, and I had this free time. So I put out my first solo album. That was that G-Town sound or what have you. And that was like stuff that was almost like a lifetime of songs and melodies that I had just recorded. And it was kind of like, there wasn't so much a theme to it other than just like, there was these 11 songs or riffs or rhythms or whatever that I put out. And then after I did that, I continued on, writing songs and stuff like that. And I came up with the idea of like, By the Numbers would be kind of like more of a beat record. So the idea was I would put a drum beat before and after each song. So there would just be some beat that I'd, recorded and was doing, and that would then morph into a song and then a beat and a song. So By the Numbers, again, all the songs are just labeled 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. But it goes like, it's a beat, it's a song. And then by a song, I mean, it's like, it's got bass, it's got trumpet, it's got piano, percussion, stuff like that. All me playing it. But the theme of it was just to have beats going into songs, going to beats, going to songs. So it's a drum record, really. And By the Numbers, I mean, some of the numbers mean stuff, like some of the song, like the song in 6, and it ends up being number 9 on the record, what have you. But there's some of that stuff plays, but the idea was just 11 beat songs type thing. So
yeah, I was wondering what the numbers meant. So,
yeah.
Out of all the instruments you can play, what one other than drums, what do you think you can play the best?
Not much better than the drums, that's for sure. So, I mean, trumpet is what I've spent the most time on, I guess. But I still sit there like I just put down some trumpet tracks for a Red Hot Empty song we're doing, and I'm sitting there trying to figure out what chord is playing and then what notes I can pull out of that. And then what's the fingering for it. And then I'm pulling up the tuner. So there, I can make my way around a trumpet, and I know, correct embouchure and all that type of stuff, but I'm no trumpet player. But yeah, trumpet's probably of everything that I can read music and stuff like that. And I took some lessons. So when my sons got into music for a while, they did it through school, but then they were homeschooled for a few years. And while they did that, they played in, one of them played in Joyful Noise, which is like it's this music program where it has the parents actually play with their kids in these bands and concert bands and stuff like that.
That's kind of cool.
So yeah, so I picked up the trumpet again and started playing. My son was playing saxophone in the band. So there I was, 40 something years old at the time, playing in, basically a high school concert bands, jazz bands, stuff like that. So that got me back on the trumpet again. I also played trumpet for church a little bit, and then for my own stuff. So I went back to taking lessons for a little bit from a guy at KSU and kind of got back into it. But yeah, trumpet, piano, I dabble, never taken lessons. Bass, there's this upright bass in our studio, and if I pass it, basically I just play some notes or what have you, and maybe come up with a rhythm. I see it more as like both of those, piano and bass, are more like, to me, like for my purposes, are like rhythm instruments. So they're just, I'm making some rhythm. It's got some sort of melody, And then if it's got some repeatable pattern or something like that, and it sounds good, then I'll record it. And then if I get enough of it, then I could lay a beat down to it, or it might go the other way. I have a beat and try and lay that to it. But yeah.
Cool. Cool. There's quite a few people in here. Do you want to do like a 30-second to 60-second jam on the drums?
Sure, I could play a little drum solo.
Now, keep in mind, this is like a beginner set of drums that my son played for years and years and years. So it's not the best drums, but he'll make it sound amazing, I'm sure.
All right, we'll see. We'll put a little something.
And while he's going back there, I want to shout out my sister Priscilla got these made. They're coasters with our logo on it. Surprised me. It was pretty awesome.
All right, we'll see what happens. There we go.
That was awesome.
Well, something. It's funny.
That was fun.
That was a lot of fun. I want to know how that turned out too, because sometimes the internet kind of like suppresses stuff, but I think we got the sound dialed down now.
We'll see that. It's definitely an interesting set, but
Sorry.
yeah, it's fun. But that I put myself on the spot. A couple years ago, I don't know if you saw, I started taking a set out on the mornings and like on the side of a street, basically busking to nobody except passing traffic. But I'd go set up my drums. So I set it up all different places around this area. And I'd sit there and just start playing a beat or what have you, and people be honking and stuff like that. But basically it was just to go out. I was doing it on Sunrise. So I'd go out, whatever, set up my drums on the side of the road, try and find some place where I wasn't going to wake someone up. Although there's an interesting video on my TikTok of a guy like getting all pissed off about me waking him up. I ended up meeting him later, but when he was a little more calmed down. But and he actually got one of my albums and stuff like that. But at the time, he was pretty pissed off that I'd woken him up early on I think it was a Sunday morning. I don't remember what it was. But anyway, so I got to the point where like I love just like setting up drums somewhere and just playing a beat and just kind of rolling with it and stuff like that. So it's good fun.
Let's talk about your writing process a little bit, of which we kind of touched on it a little bit. So probably not a lot more to add to it, but
yeah, I mean, the writing, as far as like for my own stuff, with my bands and stuff, for the most part, they're our guitarists or they're writing songs, and then I'm helping, with rhythms and stuff like that, or sometimes I'll suggest stuff, but I don't really bring stuff to my original bands right now. But for my own like personal stuff, it's usually beats. So like when I go down the studio, just like there, whatever, I might play for a couple hours and all of a sudden something will flush out of it and I'll record it down. And then if it's something, I'll put it to a metronome, and then I'll try and lay down a piano part over it if I think it needs it, or a bass part. But basically, it's just piece by piece. And it could start like on the piano. Sometimes I'll just sit up. I mean, it's just like probably anyone else. Sit at the piano, play some stuff, other than I'm not a trained pianist or a bass player. But come up with the rhythm. If it's cool or whatever, if I like it, maybe I'll work on it for a couple weeks and then I'll record it. Then I'll try and put it to a metronome and then, then kind of go from there. So, and then I'll just layer stuff, like especially with my solo stuff. If it's not just a drum beat, then I'll get like a bass and a drum beat, and then maybe I'll add the piano onto it, and then maybe some trumpet and some percussion. Yeah, that's basically it till it feels like it's a full song. And, all my stuff is like, I've definitely right now it's at a stage where it's just for that one time that I record it and put it out or what have you. I haven't looked into or haven't talked with anyone about actually playing the stuff live, but someday.
Have you thought about doing studio work?
I do. So not in a studio, but I do drum tracking for people. So people send me their tracks and then I, without drums, and then I lay down. So I do that, quite a bit of that work. So
cool.
Yeah.
All right. We were going to talk gear a little bit. I hear we got a question. Oh, that's not a question. That's awesome. Who's that from?
Who's that say? Oh, that's Steve Walker. Yeah, he's a friend that lives in Seattle. He's actually a music teacher. He was in my jazz bands and all kinds of stuff. So
nice. All right. What's the first thing we should do to this set to make it better? Heads? Or just throw it away?
No, we just need new heads and just be set up. Well, if I was to play, it'd be set up differently. But basically just needs new heads. I mean, that's all it needs. And but it doesn't matter. I mean, when you're first learning, all you're doing is just playing rhythms and so
it's fine. My son started playing when he was 8, and you're pretty small when you're 8, but it's set now. He's 17 and 6'3", and the set he still keeps it set up like he did when he was 8. So everything's real tight.
Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah, I don't know why. He's just comfortable with that. Everything tight. I don't know, but yeah. So
new heads.
What kind of
drum sets?
Yeah.
So I had a Rogers 360. That's what I bought with paper out money. That was my first set. And a Rogers, people that are like Rogers snobs are like Rogers 360. So that was it was pretty much a crap Rogers set. But that set lasted me from 84 till really for all my stuff through the Seattle days. I used that all the way till I moved from Seattle in 97, 98, something like that. That set lasted me. And actually that's the set I still had when I started getting back into playing about 10 years ago. But then as I played it, this was the same kit that went through the house fire. And now not only cymbals weren't working, now the hardware just started to come off and it was dying. So I've actually hardwared. I don't even know hardwared.
Sounds
put
good.
New hardware on that kit, and so I still have that one in the corner. I play it sometimes. I have it tuned up high for doing jazz stuff. But anyway, so that was my main kit for 30 years probably. I guess I've been playing drums for almost 40 years now. And then when I started getting serious about it again, I went and got a DW kit. That was a kit. I always loved DW. It's huge. It's got a 24-inch bass drum. It's got an 18-inch floor tom. And it's just a monster kit. But I really love that big sound. Mm-hmm. I took it out for live gigs for a while, but then I just left it. Ended up getting another kit. It's a big kit for carrying around for shows. So that's now my studio kit for the most part. That's set up. Every once in a while I'll switch stuff out. But my DW kit is what I use in the studio. When I talked about wanting going out and playing on the side of the road and stuff like that, I bought this Tama Club Jam. It's a really small little mini kit, and I've got that in the corner. I've also set up some bells with that. So I've gotten creative lately where I have bells with that, and it's just a kick snare hat. I got the bass right next to me. So I've got that as just kind of playing out, or just when I want to go jam, just something real basic. And then the kit that I use now for shows with my bands is it's a PDP, which is another division of DW, and that's a smaller kit. It's like a 22 regular size floor tom, and but yeah, they're all 4-piece kits, except for my little Club Jam Mini, and yeah. As far as like cymbals and stuff like that, I've never been, and I'm definitely, there's no one I favor or what have you. So like for cymbals and stuff like that, I always just went to the music store and listened. And so I had like Zildjian and Paiste when I was growing up. And then lately, like right now on my main kit, I've got a Zildjian, Crash. I got a couple Meinl. I've gotten in Meinl lately. A lot of their Byzance dual stuff is awesome. Istanbul, Agop. I've got some hi-hats of theirs. And Sabian, AAX. I mean, I know it's probably talking whatever French to you or what have you, but yeah.
I know the brands.
Yeah. So there isn't one brand. I mean, I'm not endorsed by anybody. And so I just go and find out, and I'm not looking for something that's all matchy. As I've gotten, over the years, I've looked for stuff that basically hits and disappears. So I'm really into like crashes that like when you hit it, it makes the crash and then it's gone. But then looking for different tones within that. So a lot of my crashes are, thin and they've got some complex character to it. But they're all very, just hit and get out of the way. Same with my ride. I like a ride that can like ping a little bit, it's got some definition, but that also, because I play in some heavy bands, that it's got to be able to, like when I'm slamming on it, it's got to have some volume to it and get all washy and stuff like that. And then I have some stackers. So, that the clap stack, and I've got a hex stack and a lot of that stuff for some of those kind of real intricate rhythms, tool type stuff, where we have some of that in our in my punk band, Red Hot Empty, where it gets kind of proggy in some places, and some of that stuff's really cool. Just create some different textures and stuff like that. So
I still need to come see you guys play too.
Yeah. So yeah.
We got Clint says, great interview. I appreciate it. It's
dad.
all him. I just have to sit here and say some words, and he fills them in.
Yeah. My dad made it happen, right? So I'm here. Thanks to him and my mom.
That's right.
Where
do you see yourself in the future with music? What are your future goals, I guess, this year and like, say, 4 years out? So
this year is, to me, it's like I never know. So I can have the best laid plans, right? So there's stuff that I want to do. Like I want to put out another solo album. We're currently in the process of recording several songs that'll probably end up into a couple albums with Red Hot Empty. I've actually started tracking for a couple other bands, actually 3 other bands just recently, McMansions and Filthy Wizard, again, a couple local bands, and then another local guy I've started on his album. So I want to do a lot more of that. Obviously, I love being down in my studio. I mean, that is like heaven down there. If you've ever seen the pictures, it's just like, yeah, I just go in there and it's a cool retreat. So I love being in there. I love getting creative in there. So I definitely I see myself this year. I mean, I got my work cut out for me on like getting through a lot of that and hopefully picking up a lot. That'll help lead to a lot more of that type of work. I'd love to. So that's kind of how I see myself this year, is just working on getting more of those drum tracking gigs, playing out more live, with Red Hot Empty, hoping for some bigger gigs and stuff like that. We're not much into, or they're not much into like traveling or doing a tour type stuff. So it'll all be local. This other band I was talking about, McMansions, that's another band that's asked me to play live with them. So I'm looking to do some gigs with them. But that's kind of how I see this year going, as well as just recording my own album. This one, I do want to be funk album. So I've kind of started like mapping that out. There's a bass player I used to play with in Seattle. His name's Blake. And he lives in Miami now, or actually, down South Florida. That I'd love to get up here. We played in a band, a couple of them called Mushmouth, and then one called 420 Love, and it was all funk, original funk music. And so I'm hoping to like lure him up for a weekend or two. It wouldn't take us long for him to lay down a bunch of like funk rhythms and kind of make an album out of that. So that's kind of like, I guess, my dream thing for this year. And then as far as the next 4 or 5 years, I mean, just hopefully that my business with Shooting Star does stays running smooth enough that I have the time to keep doing more of that. I have like, I guess, wish stuff that I would love to do. I mean, you're running out of runway, as you get older of how much you can get done before, it gets kind of crazy where you're like 60, 70 years old and like trying to like, what else could I do? But I mean, I'd love to go on tour with, a bigger band or even a smaller band, but I'd love to have that. That was one thing. All the bands, trip. Yeah. All the bands that I've done, I mean, we've always done like within a state or two away, but I've never done like a true like, US states tour or overseas. There were some, I had some opportunities when I first moved to Atlanta with a couple bands, but again, it was one of those in between periods where it just didn't work out. But I still would love to do that. I mean, is to have that opportunity to play with some larger artists and or, just do a tour and take, 3 months to go do some big tour and support some band. So kind of that's like, if it comes up, I'd take advantage of it if it worked out right. So
it seems like a lot of the Atlanta bands do really well overseas. I don't know why, but a lot of them I interviewed, they'll say that they have a big, a lot bigger following over there, which is funny.
Yeah.
And some of them will actually go and do, a couple shows and stuff over there. And
it's interesting.
I don't know what the draw is on Atlanta. Maybe it's all the U.S., but I'm just kind of focusing on the Atlanta band. So
yeah,
but yeah, there's some good goals. Let's talk, I guess, social media and stuff. Where can people see you play and find your music and all that good stuff? Well, obviously, we just showed Spotify.
Yeah.
It's one of them. Where do you prefer people see your music?
Anywhere. I mean, I prefer them to buy the physical music. So I do have, everything, pretty much everything that I put out, especially the new stuff. So I have of By the Numbers and That G-Town Sound. It's available on vinyl. It's available on CD. That's what I prefer. Is because I've got all that stuff on my site on onedrummerdrumming.com.
If you want to bring that up, Stacey.
And the link tree, I think, has all those links and stuff like that. But all that links back to my Shopify or my One Drummer Drumming. But I'd prefer that you picked up, the vinyl and CDs there. But you can hear me anywhere, I mean, now these days when you upload it, it goes whatever, Spotify, Apple, Amazon, places that I've never even heard of, it's out there. And then for like seeing me live, right now it's mainly it's all Red Hot Empty. There's some stuff coming up with Mansions later this year. That'll be another band to look for, but it'll be all on my link tree or my site. I always put on my main site, I have our schedule for Red Hot Empty. It's right there in the top. And that rolls throughout the year, but we play once or twice a month. I think the next one is in 2 weekends, February 17th, maybe at Sweetwater in Duluth.
Oh, nice.
So we're playing there with a couple of punk bands that we've been friends with for quite some time. And then, we have stuff all the way lined up till June or July right now with Red Hot Empty. So that's where you can see me live right now. And then just, stay in touch on on my Instagram. I stay pretty active on, and my TikTok. All of it's under One Drummer Drumming. You can find all of it there. TikTok and Instagram, a little bit on Facebook. But I post a lot of like just drum videos. If you're into like just drum videos of me tracking stuff. Sometimes I'll just leave the camera going while I'm tracking, and then splice something together. But I do a lot of stuff on there.
I follow your Instagram stuff. It's pretty good.
Yeah,
I like watching your little drum clips and stuff like that. And I keep meaning to do a mix where I take your drum clip and then
play along to it.
Play along to it and then post it. But I don't know. I just never get around to doing stuff like that. But all his links are down in the description. You can click on those and browse and go check out all your stuff. And is there anything else you want to shout out or talk about, or you
I just would love to see you guys come to a show. follow me up on Instagram, buy some vinyl, buy some CDs, follow Picks and Sticks and all that stuff. But yeah, just I love seeing, if you guys have comments or things you'd want to see or what have you on my Instagram or what have you, just let me know. But most of it's just beats and stuff I'm working on. So I think that's about it. I mean, as far as the music side of things. So, yeah.
Well, if you can do me a favor, smash that like button for us. Subscribe if you want to see more interviews like this. Don't forget to go follow him and subscribe to his stuff. And I really appreciate you guys watching, and I appreciate you being here. We'll have to do this in the future, maybe your next album.
Sounds good. That'd be awesome.
But we could talk all night. But
yeah, thanks for having me.
I definitely could talk all night. Yeah, I appreciate you coming out here on a rainy Sunday, and
yeah.
It was definitely cold and nasty today. But
I know yesterday was so beautiful, and then today was like, yeah, we had band practice today, and like we're all huddled inside and like go out to take a break real quick, and oh my goodness.
Well, one of my assistant coaches actually went home. He's like, we just got there and we're like already freezing. He's like, I have a duck blind at home, like a pop-up duck blind. He's like, think I should go home and get it? I'm like, go get it. And he's inside there like all
This
huddled up.
well,
no, we had to like do evals for, it's like tryouts.
Oh, okay.
So yeah. He's inside this little duck blind in the outfield and balls are like hitting off of it and stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah. Well, everybody, I appreciate you for watching, and go straight home.
Thank you.